How is it going, guys? We are back at Paragon Performance yet again. Last time we were here, we had Andrew's 2022 BRZ on the dyno. If you guys haven't seen that video yet, check it out above. This time around, we've got our own 2022 GR86. So of course, we gotta throw it on the dyno to get a baseline before we start throwing modifications at it that may or may not affect how much power it makes. I also wanna throw this thing on some scales to figure out how much it weighs, but before we do that, onto the dyno we go.
Compared to the previous generation, we're kind of seeing the same thing where the power does climb really well to just about 7,000 RPMs. The engine does let you rev a little higher. It goes to about 7,400, but we see there is a pretty good trail off in power there from 210 down to 190. That's pretty consistent with the previous generation as well. So this is actually the second 22 model we've had on the dyno. The first one was a BRZ. Not that that necessarily makes any difference, but it's possible that the calibration could be a little bit different. He also had more miles on it. You guys are right about 500. I think he had 1,500, but his dynoed at 215 horsepower, 175 torque, pretty much a little bit more everywhere. Top end is pretty similar as it kind of falls off, but we might see the power pick up a little on this if we do some more runs and kind of, you know, seat the rings a little bit. Feels good. Yeah, I mean, these cars are impressive. I'm really excited to see what we can do with these with some tuning. I'm excited to put some boost to one of these and see how it takes that. So the previous generation FA20 in the prior generation was really good. I mean, it takes a lot of boost. I have some guys making 400 horsepower on stock engines, no problem. So excited to see what these can do and have some more torque. For a car that you're going to take and probably leave alone, a lot of guys are not going to turbo them. They want to go to the track and have a good time with it. You know, adding some more displacement's the right answer.
We're finished up on the dyno, so now the car is on the scales. To give you guys a reference point, a base model is supposed to weigh in at 2,811 pounds. The previous gen, I think, weighs just under 2,780. This car weighs 2,812 pounds, which is pretty darn impressive. Shouldn't be too hard to get weight out of this car if you want it, but with the added boost in horsepower, torque, and the lessened torque dip, it is gonna be a complete riot out on the track and the street. I can't wait to actually be able to go out and do some spirited driving with this thing now that it's broken in. But with that being said, let's head back to the shop and take a closer look at the dyno charts. We are back from the dyno. Well, actually, it's the next day. I ran out of time yesterday. That's why I'm in different clothes. If that bothers you, I am sorry, but let's talk about the numbers. A 2022 BRZ or GR86 is supposed to make 228 horsepower and 184 foot-pounds of torque to the crank. The previous gen made 205 horsepower and 156 foot-pounds of torque. That's an increase of 23 horsepower and 28 foot-pounds of torque. Not a substantial increase, but it's definitely better than nothing. However, last month when we threw a 2022 BRZ on the dyno, it made 216 horsepower and 176 foot-pounds of torque to the wheels. And this car yesterday made 215 horsepower and 170 foot-pounds of torque. That would indicate that these cars are probably underrated from the factory. To put that into perspective, my stock FRS made 171 horsepower and 142 foot-pounds of torque on that same dyno. That is an increase of about 45 horsepower and 30 foot-pounds of torque, which I would say is a substantial increase with how lightweight and nimble these cars are. Furthermore, if we take a look at the dyno charts, although there is still a small torque dip, it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. On my stock FRS, we were losing up to 20 foot-pounds of torque between 3,000 to 4,500 RPM. But with the new car, you're losing maybe 10 to 15 foot-pounds of torque between 3,500 and 4,500 RPM. So while it's still there, it's nowhere close to what it used to be, and you can definitely tell by just driving the car around. Also, if you look in the higher RPM ranges, you can see that the new car pulls almost all the way up to 7,000 RPM, where my FRS kind of flattens out at 6,500. So I would say it is a nice, substantial increase all across the board, and that is in stock form. Once tuning options come out for these cars, it's just gonna get that much better. Let me know what you guys think. How much power do you think this car is gonna make with full bolt-ons and an E85 tune? I'm hoping to see around 250 because that would be absolutely amazing. But that is pretty much gonna do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.